Good morning, members, and welcome to this meeting of the Finance, Procurement and Transformation Committee. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be made available for viewing through our Council's website. Can I remind members to follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones and switching off your video when you are not addressing the meeting. Those of you attending virtually who wish to contribute to any item should write speak in the Teams chat function, and you'll be invited to speak in order about new issues. Should your question be already raised, please just withdraw your request so that we can deal with the business as efficiently as possible. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. If any member has to leave the meeting for any reason, can I remind you to either leave the Teams meeting for that period of time, or could you write leave in the Teams chat function and then join, and this will help us to record member presence. We have several important reports to consider today, and I anticipate we'll deal with them in our usual efficient manner. I would like to inform members that I've agreed to take two late items of business, which will be considered at the end of this agenda. These reports were circulated on Friday. Item number 1 is surrounding apologies and Chair's approval of members' remote participation. Nick, can you provide us with the surrounding and any apologies?
Thank you, Chair. Yes. In terms of those members present on Microsoft Teams, we have Councillors Hagman, Fairburn, Hislop, Ingalls, Johnston, Lever, McGregor, Nicholson and Councillor Ronnie. And in the room, I understand there's yourself, Councillor John Campbell, David McKee, Lane Murray, Tommy Sloan and Stephen Thompson. Okay, thank you. I approve those members who are participating remotely to indeed participate. Item number 2 is declarations of interest. Do any members have a declaration of interest they wish to make? Nope. Item number 3 is a minute of the previous meeting on the 17th of June. Can we approve the minutes of that meeting? Yeah, I'm getting nodding. Thank you. Item number 4 is the Council Revenue Budget Monitoring Report 2021/2022 for the first quarter. This report provides members with an overview of the Council's overall financial monitoring position in its current financial year and includes an update on the main financial implications associated with the COVID pandemic. Paul Garrett and Gillian Ross are here to assist if members have any questions, and I will open up for a member debate. I have no members wanting to come in.
I've got my hand up, Chairman.
Oh, sorry, Dick, want you come in?
Yeah, that was just a question about the overall finances. In the minutes we've just approved, there's a lot of financial consequences of decisions we made to bolster up the education spending and social work services spending. So I was just looking forward to the future. Quite a lot of these are recurring costs, but there are some things which are going to continue on to the next financial year. What sort of provisions have we made for next year to take these on, and have we projected any further on what the consequences will be? For example, some good ideas like growing your own social workers. What sort of consequences are these going to have for next year?
Paul?
Thank you. Yes, we've made full provision for the full period over which the additional resources have been allocated in relation to those decisions that were taken at the last meeting of this committee. So they've been fully met from the additional COVID funding that has been made available to the Council. The one area where there is a continuing desire to continue with that service is in that growing your own area, and what social work have indicated is that they will look to accommodate that within the existing revenue budget once the current COVID monies have come to an end. That's very much at the kind of more minor level in comparison to the other additional resources that have been allocated to the service, and it's something that I think is manageable and continue to work with Lillian on to make sure that can be achieved.
Okay, Ivor.
Thank you, Chair. I remember my dad once telling me that if you're farming potatoes, you get one good year in 7. These figures look quite good just now, but that one good year has to make you last for the other 6 poorer years. And I hope people, when they see this paper, realise that, yes, we might be in a strong position just now, or a stronger than expected position, but we could have a couple of years of famine coming on in future years, and we should be making sure that we do what we can to make sure that we don't get into trouble financially in future years by being careful this year.
Okay, thanks, Ivor. I have no other members wanting to come in at this point, so I will move to the recommendations. Are we happy to note 1, 2, 3 and 4 on block? Okay, thank you. Item number 5 is the development of the Council's budget process 2022 for 2023. This report provides an update on the development of the Council's agreed budget setting process to support 2022/23 budget proposals. This includes an engagement programme for our consideration to inform that budget development. Paul Garrett is here to assist if members have any questions, and I will open up for member debate. And Kirsty is also here in the budget development if anybody has any questions, but I've got nobody indicating they wish to come in. So I will move to the recommendations, and are we happy to note 1 and 2 and agree 3 on block? Yes, thank you very much. Item number 6 is the Capital Investment Strategy Monitoring Report 2021/22 for Q1. This report provides us with an update on the Council's capital investment strategy and an overview of the first quarter financial and physical progress on the agreed capital programme. Paul Garrett and Alan Gass are here to assist if members have any questions, and I will open it up to member debate. Ivor.
I know it's not in here, but do we have any information with regard to the traveller site at Cullen? You know, that's been something that's been sort of kicking about, and I notice we've got the Glen Luce one, but have we had any discussions from, I think it was communities were looking after this one, and is there anything coming forward in the next couple of years?
Okay, Paul.
I don't know if Vlad was wanting to come in, and that's what I could cover this one. But if Vlad, if you want to come in on that, I'm quite happy with that.
Okay, Vlad.
Yeah, I could come in from a practical perspective in terms of where we're at. So what we're carrying out at the moment is as a robust and options appraisal as we can get in terms of looking at all the options and alternatives within both that site, but also looking at other potential sites. So we're looking at all of that so that we can present that to members. I hope that we'll carry that out by the end of this year and therefore be in a position to report that to Council thereafter.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got no other members wish. Oh, Elaine.
Yeah, just on 3.10 and the net receipts of 32k have been received against our target of 500k. I appreciate there's quite a number of properties still under offer and you can't be certain when they will go and so on, but do we anticipate that we will reach the target of 500k in this year?
Paul?
Yes, we're now actually much closer to that £500,000 target than we were when we finalised this report. There's been 3 sales in the last couple of weeks of Woodbank, Applegarth Hall and 116 to 118 English Street. So they've added about £400,000 to the receipts generated in the current financial year. So we're already well towards that £500,000 target. So we're confident that will be met.
Excellent, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no other members who wish to come in, so I will move to the recommendations. Are we happy to note 1 and 2 and agree 3 and 4 on block?
Yep.
Yep, thank you very much. Item number 7 is the Finance and Procurement Revenue Budget Monitoring Report for 2021/22. The first quarter revenue monitoring report for the Finance and Procurement Service is presented to committee, including the impact of the ongoing financial implications associated with the COVID pandemic. Paul Garrett and Gillian Ross are here to assist if members have any questions, and I will open up to member debate. I have no members who wish to come in, so I will move to the recommend. Sorry, Ivor.
Just a quick one. Just with COVID carrying on, are we confident there's enough staff and resources within the sort of revenues and benefits side if there's any questions to come forward, or is that separate from this one? Is it more into communities?
Paul?
It is in the community service, but just in terms of that service area, it is one where there has been significant additional demands associated with COVID, particularly processing additional support arrangements for local businesses, and also dealing with a number of the welfare grant payments. So that there was a report that was agreed by this committee to put some additional resources into that service on a temporary basis to help address that pressure, and that will be reported back to Communities Committee as that's taken forward.
Okay, thank you. I have no further members who wish to come in, so I'll move to the recommendations. Are we happy to note the report? Yep. Okay, thank you. Item number 8 is a review of internal financial procedures and procurement standing orders. This report presents the third update on the agreed implementation plan to address the recommendations from our review of internal financial procedures and procurement standing orders. A number of officers are here to assist if members have any questions, and I will open it up to member debate. Jane?
Thank you very much, Adam. Yes, just in terms, there will be a number of changes of dates in this in the report on the implementation action plan, Chairman. And I'm just sort of making anxious noises that we're not kind of slipping, are we? You know, the whole business in the contracts register non-compliant spending, and then going on to the actual numbers of people we seem to be able to recruit. And there was another issue as well, which I hope maybe I can come back to. Yes, it's about recruitment and the ability of us to monitor what's going on. Particularly, I'm interested in the compliance issue with the contracts. So I'd like to know how we're getting on. And, you know, I look at these figures and see that there are a little bit of slippage, and I just want to be absolutely certain that we're all going to arrive at the right place with 100% compliance with contracts. So I look forward to that assurance.
No, I appreciate your comments, Jane, and I was pleased to see the sort of job adverts for the extra positions in legal over only a couple of weeks ago, but I'll bring in Paul on your point.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think overall we've made very good progress today, and are continuing to make good progress against the action plan with a kind of large number of the agreed actions either completed or still on schedule. In particular, the contract register non-compliant spending recommendation 1 and 2, there is good progress being made on that, and as per the agreed schedule, a full detailed report on the level of non-compliance identified will be reported back to the next meeting of this committee, and that will be accompanied by an action plan which will actually set out how we would look to address those areas. And I actually had a meeting with Karen Scott and Steve Atherton on that earlier this morning, and we've made good progress there in terms of identifying some of the issues. There's a bit of further work to be done to clarify the information, but we'll be looking to make sure that that report is available well in advance of the next meeting of the FPT committee for members' consideration. But we are particularly in that particular area in terms of contract compliance and preparation of the contract register. That is very much on schedule. We have had some challenges in terms of additional recruitment, but we have made some good progress in that area as well. We've actually got, I think, 5 additional staff available to us at this stage, and we're making kind of further appointments and getting further support at the minute as well. So I think in general things have moved along at a significant pace. It's a high priority for the service, and we'll continue to try and ensure that we meet the deadlines as we take this overall action plan forward. But in terms of the resource, and as I say, I think we've got a number of appointments already supporting our procurement activities, but I don't know if Vlad maybe wants to come in terms of the kind of legal side. As Adam says, we've recently got the adverts out for those posts, so I don't know if Vlad could maybe add anything to that.
Vlad?
Yes, so we've got a number of posts that we're looking to recruit, and the 2 legal ones were the key priority because that will absolutely assist in some of the contractual elements of the actions that we have to deliver on, including the contracts register and looking at specific terms of contract, etc. within that. So we've now advertised that nationally and hope to get obviously the right result in that regard, and there'll be others in the next few weeks that you'll see being advertised, including one through the audit team, as well as one through a couple others through governance matters to take forward some of the other actions. Now, we've got to go through due process, so that's very important, and it's appropriate and right that we get these job descriptions and so on correct before we go to advertisement. Thereafter, obviously, we're in the hands of those that are interested in the posts. I think the key advantage we've got is that obviously within the current scenario that we're in, most things can be done online, so they don't necessarily need to be moving to Dumfries and Galloway if they don't wish to. So I think some of these roles can be carried out quite efficiently within that online basis with ad hoc meetings. But in essence, I guess in summary from myself, just to give notice that you'll be seeing other adverts go up within the next few weeks, certainly from the governance and assurance perspective.
Okay, thank you. Ivor?
Thank you, Chair. I can understand Jane's concern about the time that might slip, but as long as it's not too much, I'm quite happy to see a little slippage as long as it's done properly and we've got a good result at the end. Better taking that extra week or so than rush into it. But I'm also can realise that Jane does want that done quickly and put in place properly. The other one that I had was culture. Just wondering how the member officer working group were getting on with scoping this project, because I think that'll be quite a difficult thing to do, and it might be red amber for a wee while just till we get the scope in place and move forward on that process.
Lorna?
Just to confirm that a further meeting of the Member Officer Working Group was held in early August. I don't know whether a leader or indeed the chair of the Member Officer Working Group, Councillor Maitland, would wish to comment. I think there's some further work to be done that was tasked from that meeting, and members would be expecting a report through to a future meeting of full council.
Okay, apologies, Jane. I will bring you back in at this point, as you've requested already, but if you want to make anything further on that, then please do.
Thank you, Adam. Yes, that's absolutely correct. As far as the Member Officer Working Group, with respect to this particular piece of work, we need to have people on the ground, and I am anxious that that the adverts have been quite slow in coming forward and being put in place. And to get this whole piece of work going on, it's about making the public feel absolutely certain that they can see what is happening with their money. And we've got to be absolutely sure that we can see what's happening. And at the moment, I just think it's being quite slow. And so for members to see the evidence session that you've got coming forward, Adam, we haven't got a date for that. I think it should be immediately, really as soon as possible after the next FPT, in order that members have in their minds the level of compliance that we've got, the sense of urgency about getting this right, and on we go. So I'm really wanting to push this one forward. I mind about this one.
Okay, thank you for coming. My understanding is that the difficulty with the evidence session is the pressure on the council diary, but note your suggestion around actually following the next FPT committee, and we'll take that forward and make sure a date is circulated as soon as possible. Stephen?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it was just partly on the compliance, and I know we spoke some time ago about the amnesty period for contracts to go in the register, as it were. There's a couple of things, obviously we'll come to this in a later item, just to do with the actual list in the register itself. But I just sort of wondered about that level of compliance. It does talk of in a later item, but it might have been useful in this item, about 81% contracts on register. I don't know if that's the same as saying there's 29% that we still have yet to sort of account for. But I'm just wondering if we could maybe hear about that just now, because obviously we want to know when the amnesty finishes, because we shouldn't have to wait too long, and also just how much is left outstanding, because that's probably about 30 million of spend that hasn't been accounted for.
Okay, Paul?
Yeah, thank you. Just to say that amnesty period has now completed. We have had returns from each head of service, and those have been analysed by the procurement team under Karen Scott in terms of identifying the levels of non-compliance, and as I said earlier, kind of formulating an action plan to address those areas. There's still a bit of kind of clarification of some of the information before we're ready to present that to members. I see Karen's just come up there. I don't know if she's maybe got to add anything to that, but basically what we're planning to do is come back to them with kind of full details on the levels of non-compliance and what we're going to do to address that at the next meeting of this committee.
Karen, is there something you wish to add? Oh, you're on mute.
Apologies, thank you. Yeah, as Paul said, obviously I'm just finalising the detail of the amnesty returns and intend to bring a full report to the next committee in October. And yeah, it's just working through the action plan and putting some dates and responsible owners beside that at the moment. So the full detail will be available in October.
I have no other members who wish to come in. Oh, sorry, Elaine.
Thanks, Chair. It was just a little more on the Member Officer Working Group. I'm not quite sure what is meant by establishing a scope for it, because in fact the scope was actually determined by full council, and Fiona Lees did quite a bit of work around what that actually meant, and that it came to the group. The group's actually met 3 times now. At the last, we had some discussion really around the values of the council, because they're not actually specified. We have priorities and so on, but we don't actually say what the values of the council are. So we had a bit of discussion around values, and we also, there was quite a lot of enthusiasm for the workforce engagement programme, which was hoped to take place in person. I don't know whether that will be as possible now, because the previous meeting, the COVID situation wasn't quite as bad as it is now. But I just wondered if there was any update on the workforce programme, because that was actually to try and determine what the workforce felt about our values and obviously their experience over the COVID period, but actually, you know, how they saw what the council ought to be and what its culture ought to be.
Yeah, apologies, I didn't see you. It's the first hybrid meeting I've chaired in 9 months, and it's surprising how quickly you have to get, how quickly things disappear. You have to get used to them again. Lorna.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Leader. So as the update provides, officers are preparing a staff engagement programme, and this is about the kind of, I think, recognition, reflection and reconnection after COVID. we're taking the opportunity within that to speak to staff about values and principles. So it's not directly related to the delivery of the action within here, but it does cover that in the widest possible sense. And we'll look to brief members on that in more detail, and we're looking to commence that later in September, mindful of the current guidance from work from home if possible. So a number of staff, particularly frontline staff, will want to meet in person, and we want to be able to facilitate that in a safe way. And we'll update members around that, and of course the ward members will be able to join and listen into those sessions, but they'll be primarily led by staff and with staff. So, you know, the recommendation that was made by members was about establishing a programme of culture change. And I think what we've been exploring through the member officer working group is about what is the change that people want to see, and part of that will come through the values discussion. This is also linked to the work on the people strategy, which will come to Economy and Resources Committee in November. And part of that will be about re-establishing organisational values with the staff based on those engagement discussions and informed by staff working groups. So we are progressing on that work, but obviously the programme of culture change is really led by all of us. But we have to be clear about what is the change that we wish to see, and officers are progressing that work through engagement with staff directly.
Okay, thank you. I have no other members who wish to come in at this point, so I'll move to the recommendation. I think it's fair to say that we have indeed reviewed the update and the implementation plan. Item number 9 is further development of the capital investment strategy, review of asset class funding. This report updates and indeed finalises the work commissioned on the review of the asset classes funding as part of the capital investment strategy. It sets out proposals in relation to the review outcomes, taking into account the submissions made for individual asset classes through service committees and the Suez Trans Board. I welcome the progress made on this commitment to undertake this review set in the Council's agreed budget, and a number of important points for us to consider from the review. At the outset of this report, I would like to thank officers who have been involved in gathering and collating this detailed work on a significant level of investment in our region over the next, for what could be a significant level of investment over the next few years. Paul Garrett is here to assist if members have any questions, and I will open it up to member debate. Jeff.
Thanks, Adam. It's recommendation 2.4, which says to note an additional £1 million of early learning and childcare capital funding. It was agreed at the Education and Learning Committee in June to request that out of the 1.648 million of slippage from capital. So I think that should really read agree rather than note. Otherwise, everything's just left in limbo.
Okay, fair point. Paul?
Yeah, no, happy to accept that. The funding is there. The additional £1 million will be provided to the education property asset class to support these works. So I'm more than comfortable if that's the change to agree.
Thank you.
Stephen?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, this is in reference to the Suez Trans funding, with particular reference to the active travel links. So there's a bit of a table there on page 141, just sort of outlining some of the settlements, for example, which would fall into that category as the communities to be linked to, satellite settlements, etc. So I'm just sort of noticing in there, I think one of the frustrations with this is it does seem to take an awfully long time to get a path. And I know we've been, in our wards, for example, not to get parochial, there's links between Beattie and Moffat that have been looked at, and also even more recently Lochmaben and Lockerbie. Obviously there's been a few delays just due to what's happened in the last year and a half, but I'm just sort of wondering how is this going to, when are we going to see some sort of delivery on the ground with this, because it has been in the pipeline for a long time. I know community groups have sort of tried to form and push this along, but ultimately we hold the budgets a lot of the time and sort of tap into the likes of other organisations like Sustrans, etc., who I think have recently changed their sort of pipeline process, if you like. But would there be anybody available to speak to that just now to give us an update on those or that process? Thank you.
I'm happy to bring Douglas or Paul in, but I think we're here to set the budget today, not to actually talk about specific projects. But I appreciate the point on making sure that the funding is allocated, is spent as quickly and as appropriate as possible, to make sure that it does get to communities as quickly and as appropriately as possible. So, Douglas?
Yes, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Thompson, for the question. Yes, very relevant as well. There has been an issue recently with the sustrans element of the programming, and they've had to delay because of the amount of over commitment or over a number of requests above and beyond the budget that they have available. Delivery on the ground has been particularly difficult, as you know. Sustrans Board will receive a paper on path development to its next meeting at the end of September, and then hopefully we've now got a new active travel team within the roads team within the council, which will be very much focused on the infrastructure delivery and actually speeding up what has been possible to date. So hopefully when sustrans element clears to a degree, which it is now starting to do so as part of the pipeline approach they're taking, and the new active travel team kick in properly, then we will have the resources in place to move the funding along at the pace that's necessary.
Okay, Jane?
I'm trying to take deep breaths, Chairman, as I look at Douglas's background of a red and yellow bus, which I have to say, Douglas, you know I hate your yellow and red buses. Chairman, what I really wanted to say is to welcome I suppose the recognition of our fifth priority, our climate change priority in this, and to welcome the funding of projects that really recognise the urgency of this. You know, the cleaning and the catering equipment, the core paths, the buses, the electric infrastructure. All these are incredibly important, and I hope they reflect the public's clear desire to tackle this problem head on. So I'm very happy with the recommendations that have come forward here, and I really do welcome the emphasis that has been placed upon that particular policy of the council.
Okay, thank you very much, Jane. I have nobody else who wishes to come in on this agenda item, so I will move to the recommendations. We've got quite a couple of recommendations and obviously a proposed change, so I will go through them one by one. So are members happy to first of all note the process that's been undertaken to support the review? Yes. First of all, are we happy to, we haven't really discussed this, but we have previously, are we happy to agree the changes to the structure of the Council's asset class programme, which is to transfer responsibility for core paths from the infrastructure asset class to the economic development asset class, to merge the infrastructure and land asset classes into a combined public realm asset class, and to merge the currently separate fleet and vehicles and Sustrans asset classes into a combined transport asset class. Are we happy to agree? Yes. Number 3, are we happy to agree the allocation of additional funding? So that's £8 million of additional capital funding to the transport and public realm asset classes, and a proposed £1.715 million of additional revenue funding to planned preventative maintenance and schools, kitchen and cleaning equipment. Are we happy to agree? Yes. Now on on recommendation number 4, there was a proposal from Councillor Lever to change that to agree. Are we happy to agree that an additional £1 million of early learning and childcare funding is available? Agreed. Recommendation number 5 is that we agree that further information on required funding levels for individual asset classes should be provided to members as part of the current budget development process to support members' further considerations as part of the ongoing development of the capital investment strategy. Are we happy to agree? Okay, thank you very much for that. And I think, I think it's important to reflect that today we have agreed an additional £9.7 million of additional investment across our capital strategy, which, will see more money spent on our roads, on our schools, on vital local assets, and on that fifth priority of tackling the climate crisis. And of course, another possible £1 million to support Noble Hill in particular. So I think it's very important, particularly as we come out of the COVID phase and will help both our local economy and our communities to recover from COVID. So moving on, agenda item number 10 is the Procurement Annual Report for financial year 2020/21. This report presents the Procurement Annual Report summarising procurement activity and progress against the objectives set in 2020/21. I welcome the increase in the proportion of spend with local suppliers and the contributions to savings and cost avoidance through our contracting arrangements. Obviously, there's been a number of further developments that we've already discussed earlier on in this agenda, and that implementation of our committee's review findings will obviously see significant progress again this year, ensuring that we strengthen our arrangements over contracts and procurement. Paul Garrett and Stephen Atherton are here to assist if members have any questions, and I will open it up to member debate. Stephen?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, so it does tie in obviously to the recent item. 81% of spend on contract. I'm just sort of wondering, it seems like an obvious sort of statement, but what does that actually mean, and does it refer to some of the national frameworks, or does it just refer to contracts that we know are on the register, for example? Could I get a wee bit of clarity? And secondly, if we look through the appendices, it shows, various sort of contracts that are maybe either fixed term to be confirmed. I don't know if they're rolled up contracts that operate over a number of years, so there's maybe bits of detail in there that we don't yet have, like, is this the 4th year of a 5-year contract? It doesn't really say necessarily, it just tells you the value. And it doesn't allocate to the directorate or the service area particularly. So I suppose the following question, once that's dealt with, would be, will we start to see the detail of those contracts at future service committees where the business relates to, or will it all come through this committee, or will we get a summary at this one? And, how do we think that will look in future? Thank you.
Okay. Steve? Steve, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure my camera's working.
We can hear and see you.
Oh, that's fine then. That's good. Yes, thank you, Councillor Thompson. So if I can wrap it up into one answer, I suppose, is the easiest way. The new contracts register, which is being built at the moment, will identify all the gaps that you've seen in that appendix. So it will identify what the spend is, it will identify who it's with, it will identify the service area, it will also identify the periodicity of the contract and any extensions. So all of that will become visible. I'm working with Karen, and Karen's working with me to make sure we get that right, so that what is available then to both officers and members is total visibility of what is committed on behalf of the council in terms of contractual relationships. The figures there at the moment show contracts that are in place, be it from whichever source, whether it's national, SXL, etc. So we are going to take that detail and make it more visible, plus the ones we put in place. Does that answer the question, Stephen?
Stephen?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, all bar one, which was the 81% figure. Could you just explain what that represents? Thanks.
Yeah. So it is spend that is actually spent via contract and not via lower value. If I say that, and it's been covered earlier on the non-compliant spend, Karen has been working on that over the last few weeks, and members will be able to see the correlation between the two. But at the moment, I can't give you the exact detail until Karen's worked out that and verified that it's accurate. But there is a correlation between the 80% and the figures that are coming out via the non-compliance. So it's one of those where it will make far more sense when Karen produces the report for the October board.
Okay, John.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it's just an observation, I suppose, in the appendix in Annex B on page 190, the regulated contracts to be procured during financial year 21-22, and also on page 191, it mentions Dumfries Fountain Restoration Phase 2 at 320k, and saying from the bottom on page 191 in the papers, it mentions again the Dumfries Fountain restoration of 360. I'm just wondering, are these the same contract or two completely separate contracts?
Steve?
Thank you for that. I'll have to come back to you on that detail, but it's worth pointing out in that particular annex what isn't included in there, because we don't have the detail when the report was produced, is the contracts that we'll have to work on as a result of the non-compliant spend. So that's the best snapshot. There'll be more to add to it, but on that particular one, if I can come back to you, I'll give you the detail just to check on those.
Yeah, I'm happy with that, Chair.
Dick?
Thanks, Chair. On 3.4, it says financial savings cost avoidance of 880,948 from recurring revenue budgets attributed to a range of contracts. That sounds really, really good. So a great thing. If you look at the appendix where this goes into detail about them, a lot of them says it's a saving between pre-tender estimate and actual contract award. So a lot of them say that. So it could be that we're putting in too much optimism bias in this. So we're obviously overestimating our contracts. So how else could we evidence that it is an actual saving? Do we compare it with previous contracts of a similar nature to see if we're getting a better deal?
Steve?
Yeah, so the way that is measured is as described. I think your observation is very fair. There are two observations, I suppose. One is that competition is working really well, therefore it brought down the overall cost. The other observation, as you quite rightly made, is that perhaps our pre-tender estimates are not that accurate. And I think we're on that sort of one just there. I think we're working on that with our colleagues to try to get estimates far more accurate, and we can only do that by looking at history. Unfortunately, of course, we all know the way material pricing and all the areas around material are being affected at the moment. So history is not going to be a very good measure going forward, probably for the next year or so. But I think the observations around accuracy of pre-tender estimates, I think, is a good one. But I know that it is being worked on with colleagues.
Okay, Ivor?
With regard to the annual spend, we had circa 184 million in 2021. Is that up or down from 1920? Might have a follow-up.
Slightly down. Okay. Marginally down.
Ivor?
When you say slightly, how much is that? And would that affect the percentage of local spend? Because, if your percentage in local spend is up, but your overall spend is down, is that because we haven't procured a big service somewhere, and therefore we haven't actually spent more money with local companies? It's just the percentages show that we did.
Steve?
So so it's down by around 3 million, and it was on mainly capital areas. So the effect, I think, in terms of percentage-wise, is not material. So the local spend has gone up to 36%, which I think is reasonable. I think the key element, if you want to pull something out, is that just over a third of our spend goes to companies with D&G addresses, which I think is a good measure in the round, as opposed to really specific.
Okay, Ian?
Thank you, Chair. That was the wee groaning, by the way, just to make that clear. Chair, my question goes back to a point that Councillor Thompson made earlier. Just so I'm clear of my understanding of what the point was made he was making, that my understanding is correct, and that's the future information that we'll receive through the reports. So I think if we've got a framework agreement in place and we're buying through that framework agreement, procuring I should say, or buying, but I think ultimately we're buying on contract. And if we go away from that, we're buying off contract. And I think one of the ones we've been through the Trunks investigation process was the whole investigation, as you're definitely aware, Chair, in regards to what was going on there. But I'm sure, if I recollect, we were buying materials through the council, a particular department was buying materials. They could have bought them on contract or through a framework agreement at £60 a tonne, and we're paying some in the region £180 to £200 a tonne off contract. I just wonder, is that buying off contract? Is that so? You're non-compliant, and you could have bought through a framework agreement you've got in place potentially, and you weren't doing that. And as far as levels and information coming back to us in future reports, will we see the true monetary side? What I was kind of picking up on there as well, Stephen. I think that's what I'm looking for, the level of information we're going to be getting in future reports. And it's my understanding of the framework agreement buying on and off contract, correct? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Steve.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So some of the verification work Karen is doing at the moment is we could have a framework or a contract in place with a supplier named X, and our the systems show that a service could be buying from company X, but they may not be buying it off the contract. And that is how, and Karen is working through that to work out whether there's any of that going on at the moment. I cannot comment on the trunk roads. If there's anything further on that, Karen can come in on that. In terms of the detail available for future committees and future reporting, the sort of information that will be available with a comprehensive contracts register that is up to date and covers everything will be far greater than you will have had available thus far. Karen and I are working through that detail so that actually we can tailor information to members' requirements more. You can see the entire contracts register. All of that can be available, and obviously far more will be available publicly than is currently available. So I think going forward, if I may say, we should be able to provide information to a level of granularity that you will have not have seen thus far, but you can see going forward, and it will help give visibility to more detailed local spend, more detailed suppliers in the locality or region. So I think the opportunities going forward, once this is in place, and you'll say, when is that once? We're aiming for the contract register really to be reasonably well developed by the end of the year. It is going to take a while because there's a lot of work to get all contracts up to speed. And again, Karen indicated that she will come to the next committee meeting with the non-compliant spend and with the action plans in order to deliver. But it will give members far more granularity and far more understanding of spend going forward. Thank you.
Okay, Stephen.
Thank you. It was just a different question, just relating to the 3.28 million spend on agency staff, and I was just sort of wondering, is that the sort of amount of spend, sort of 1% of council budget, if you like, that we would sort of normally expect to have year on year in line with our recruitment policies?
Steve?
I think I'd have to come back to you on that one, if I may, Stephen, because I didn't look at the history. Karen's just come on, so maybe Karen can answer that question.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, thank you. I guess just in terms of some of the context for the agency spend, that's one of the areas that has came up through the amnesty process. So I think the spend figure that's probably incorporated within the report is actually a collective over a 4-year period. So the 3.8 million figure is not representative, 3.28 million is not representative of an annual spend at the moment, but obviously what we're looking to do is one of the actions that will come through from the amnesty process is to tackle temporary labour as a whole and ensuring that the use of temporary labour, be that agency staff or any other type of temporary staff arrangement that's put in place, is fully in line and supports the delivery of the wider policies that the council have in relation to HR and use of engagement of temporary labour. So I think that the figure itself, though, just to clarify, is probably a collective over a 4-year, which we would anticipate will start to reduce as well as we take forward some wider actions around some recruitment retention of key staff.
Stephen?
Yeah, thanks for that, Karen. I think, so the figures that we're looking at then, really, they don't really tell us anything other than there's an amount of money being spent over what could be 1 year or 4 years or whatever. So really, we do need that additional report to come back to say what is in year and what is the total spend over the duration of a contract, because it's now, I'm now looking at this sort of table thinking, it's hard to know what meaning to give to this, because the figures could represent 1 year, to be confirmed, 4 years, so there's no consistency across the figures that we're actually getting shown today, but obviously that'll come back in a future report.
Yeah, that's a level of detail or granularity that we can get into over as that work that Karen and Stephen are currently doing, and progress that and make sure that future reports include the comments made by yourself and other councillors today. I've got no other members who wish to come in, so I'll move to the recommendations, and I think it's fair to say that we've reviewed the report quite thoroughly, and are we happy to agree it? Yes, thank you very much. Item number 11 is the Annual Treasury Management Report 2020/21. The Council is required to receive an Annual Treasury Management Report for 2020/21, setting out the Council's approach to management of investments, cash flows, banking, money market and capital market transactions. The report ensures compliance with the reporting requirements set out in the CIPFA Code of Practice on Treasury Management. The report also sets out the performance for the financial year on Treasury Management activities compared to the agreed strategy, and reflects the end-of-year debt position of the Council was £152 million, a reduction of over £64 million from the previous year. Paul Garrett and Ross Fraser are here to assist if members have any questions, and I will open up to member debate. I don't appear to have anybody wishing to come in on this report, so I will move to the recommendations. And are we happy to note 1, 2 and 3 on block? Okay. Item number 12 is the Council's disposal on acquisitions policy procedural notes. This report presents members with the agreed update to the disposal and acquisitions procedures following this committee's adoption of the refreshed policy in June 2021. Paul McCulloch, Colin Freeman and Robin Fletcher are here to assist if members have any questions, and I will open up to member debate. Stephen.
Well preempted, Chair. So it was actually a question to do with the flow for the disposal process, and I'm just looking at the common good element of that. It sort of appears as box 6. I think 6 refers to the paragraph within the report relating to that. But normally, when we check the title of something, I would suggest that that's when we would ascertain whether or not it was common good. And I think it's at that point really that we need to then take the action in relation to common good, rather than ask the NHS if they would like to use the piece of land for something, because the common good would normally determine if there's a variation on the lease or sale or disposal. That would go out to consultation before we determine that as a common good committee. So I know that's maybe getting into a level of detail, but there is something about the ordering of the flow chart that seems to not quite fit common good in. And I know it's a wee bit archaic, so I'm just wondering if anybody could maybe pick up on why common good's at that point, at the stage in the flow chart after establishing title. The other point on that, just before somebody can answer that, is we are obliged to keep a common goods register as a council as per the Community Empowerment Act 2015. So I'm just thinking we kind of got surprised by the number of common good assets in Lockerbie and Lochmaben in December last year, I think it was, which weren't on the common good register. So we clearly knew they were common good at one part of the council, but we didn't know they were common good in terms of the published register of common good assets. So how will this address that? And I'm just sort of thinking earlier the better. So maybe that would be a starter for 10, Chair. Thank you.
Paul?
Thanks, Chair. And to go back on those questions, yes, with regards to the common good issue, there's a couple of numbering issues that we will look to address going forward. Through the publication of the flowcharts, it's been identified. If you look through the flowchart, not just for common good, but also for the preparation of deed plan and deal with any title issues. That's something that we feel should be moved towards the top end of the flowchart, along with the common good issue. So that'll be revised in order that both the title check and any title issues are moved up the order, along with the common good element of that. With regards to the common good register, yes, we understand that the common good register needs updated. That's work that's ongoing at the moment. The difficulty with some of these common good areas of land is that you know, a lot of them are very historic, and the title sometimes is not clear. So as we go forward and as we update the common good register, we'll work alongside legal colleagues to make sure we capture as much as what we know.
Okay, so on the back of that point, I think particularly Councillor Thompson, judging by the question, will agree with the sort of on page 247, the common good sort of question moving further up to the first stage of that disposal process. So we'll reflect that within the wording of the recommendation, and just ask Paul that if you could circulate that updated flowchart to members once it's available, that would be much appreciated. I don't have any other members who wish to come in, so I'll move to the recommendations, and I would suggest that we agree the proposed disposal and acquisition policy procedures as laid out in Appendix 2, but also note that the is it common good and inalienable land will be moved up to the beginning of the process. Are members happy to agree that form of wording? And secondly, to then note the flowcharts. Okay, thank you. As indicated at the start of the meeting, I have two urgent items of business which I intend to take now. The first one is additional resources for COVID-19 non-school cleaning requirements. This report presents a request from the RRR Subcommittee for additional resources and budget support for COVID-19 non-school related cleaning requirements. Alan Mawson is here to assist if members have any questions, and I will open it up for member debate. Do any members have any questions? I can't see anybody wishing to come in, so I'll move to the recommendations, and our members quite happy to agree to allocate up to £240,000. Okay. I have a second late item of business. It's a private paper, so for the Local Government Scotland Act 1973, our members happy to agree that we exclude the public from the meeting in terms of section 50A4 and paragraph 6A and 9 of part 1 of schedule 7A of the Local Government Scotland Act 1973. Are we agreed? Okay, we will take a very short adjournment to allow members to move over to the next Teams meeting.